Hi guys, Transit Diaries here. The reason I'm making this video is that I've been a member myself of AA in and out throughout the years. So I'm just trying to debunk some of the myths or whatever. It has some good press, it has some bad press, so on and so forth. So if there's anyone out there wondering what the hell is it all about or whatever. So here we go. So anyway, I'll start with a brief history. So AA was founded in 1935 in Akron, Ohio, the United States, by Bill W. and Dr. Bob. Well, that's at least what they're known anyway, affectionately, within the AA organization as. Now, it was quite, or to some degree, controversial from the very beginning, insofar as the famous 12 steps were ultimately based on 6 tenets that were effectively designed by a very controversial group called the Oxford Group. Now, it isn't fair to say that the Oxford Group were controversial. It'd be probably more accurate to say they were quite uncontroversial. As a right-winger, I know exactly how this feels. The world's values completely change, and suddenly you find yourself crossing the line into controversy by just retaining the very things that you've been running for a long time effectively with. But ultimately, they met their end because they allied themselves, or should I say they supported Adolf Hitler. And needless to say, that didn't go down too well in the United Kingdom and eventually in the United States when America joined the war. So that put an end, we'll say, to the Oxford Group. And AA was literally it was a grassroots thing around the same period at the time that the Oxford Group went underwater, and they effectively hijacked the 6 tenets, called them the 12 steps, added a few more in, and presto, we have the famous 12-step program. So it was, to some degree, a bit controversial from the very beginning. Now, let's be clear, neither Dr. Bob or Bill W. were saints. Particularly, Bill W. has an awful history of sex addiction. He was a manic depressive. It's quite a strange character. And now, it has been rumoured within the fellowship, but I can't confirm this. That Bill W. himself was a notorious 13-stepper. Now, we'll get to what that means later on. Some of you might understand what the concept of that is anyway. But we have to put things into context. In 1935 America, I mean, this was revolutionary stuff. Remember, we're still in the Great Depression. This is staunch Christian America. So this really was the, like tits in your face, gay pride march festival thing, of 1935. It was very revolutionary. So some credit has to be given to it in that regard. You might judge all you like in present tense, but back then it really was revolutionary stuff. It grew rapidly throughout the 19th century, even throughout the Second World War, and that was one of the great tests within AA at the time. They wondered, would it survive the Second World War? And many members served overseas, stormed the beaches of Normandy and liberated Europe and so on, and came back and retained their soberness and so on and so forth, retained their membership. So it was blooded, if you like, to some degree. So it withstood that great test, which is, I guess, you can't take from it, gives it some degree of credibility. But anyway, today it's practiced in over 150 countries worldwide. By give or take, the figures are quite loose on this, 2.5 million people. But it is generally taken, particularly in the English-speaking world, as the go-to, the default setting of anybody that thinks they have a problem with alcohol or accepts they have a problem with alcohol. It's nearly the first port of call. And that's where it stands in 2017. Its success rate. Now this is a very controversial topic for three reasons that we'll go into very shortly. Now, an independent study claimed that AA's success rate was between 5 and 8%. Now, you heard that correctly, 5 and 8%. Now, that sounds quite damning, but it's not near as damning as AA's own figures, because they themselves do census every now and then, every couple of years, and they actually put it drastically lower than that. AA themselves claim the figures somewhere closer to 2 and 5%. So you would wonder, I'm sure, if you're a free marketeer, you're wondering why an organisation is so willing to damn itself, but I'll explain that the best I can. All these figures, 2 to 5, 5 to 8, they're very controversial for three reasons. A, we have to determine what is success in the first place. Now, what I mean by that is, if you were to Google AA today, Google it and you know, chances are AA is not going to be the first thing that comes up on Google, because some highfalutin health farm in California or something that, you know, it's 10 grand a day or whatever, instant success, and, you know, all this rubbish, you know, for the elites will probably come up, not AA. And so people always assume that this is AA, which it isn't. It's not AA. But the marketing gurus at these firms know this only too well. Somebody's desperate, they've got more money than sense, they just, you know, just fix me, because I mean, that's a Western tradition now. We don't want to take responsibility for anything. So it's just like, fix me, like, just here's a blank check, fix me, you know. And Google, yeah, grand, they give them a call, yeah, we can accept you tomorrow morning, it's, you know, X amount, and they think they're in AA. And some of these health farms actually practice AA, but it's not official. It's just, none of it's official. But it's just a very clever marketing ploy. Now, these people might spend a week or 2 weeks at these health farms, for the want of a better word, and at the end of the health farm, you know, they say, you know, they get them to fill out a form at the end of it, like, are you cured? You know, and these people, yes, I'll never drink again, I'm 100%, I've cracked my addiction, I'm gonna, you know, the rest of my life, I'm focused, you know, and you know, and they sign and date it, and that health farm publishes them statistics, and the people might leave that institution on a Sunday morning, and they're back on the piss Sunday night, you know. So this success rate can be very, very, it's very hard to determine. You have to factor in also, AA has been around for nearly 80 years now, whereas these health farms might have only opened up a couple of weeks ago. So it's giving you a much broader picture of what actually constitutes success. But those are real figures, and from my experience within the organisation, I would say that's about accurate, yes. Now, B. The reason, again, why that's controversial, this 2 to 5% is controversial, for this simple reason. In my experience, well, I haven't drank or drugged now in 18 years, so I mean, I think it's reasonable to say I have a fair bit of sobriety under my belt. I've been around the block a couple of times. I can make this call, but in my experience, you know, we'll just set the figure somewhere around 5%. So we'll just assume it's 5%. That 5% nearly almost routinely recover because they practice what they do, what they're actually being told. The 95% that don't recover, whatever that is because they go into this for a number of reasons. And their wife will say, if you're a man, maybe their wife has threatened them, if you don't sort out your drinking, I'm going. And he just says, oh, I'll go to an AA meeting, and that keeps his wife happy. He comes into AA, he just attends the meeting, closes his ears, doesn't want to listen to another word anyone has to say, and he tells his wife, and his wife is happy, and his wife Googles what's going on, and it's all explained on the website. So he's not really there to sober up. He's just there to keep his wife happy. Then you have the jail baiters, where some of them, where judges have literally told them it's either jail or AA meetings. So they're in there, they're doing the same thing again. They want people to fill out forms at the end of it just to witness that they've actually attended an AA meeting, because they'll be in the slammer if they don't. But they don't want to recover. They have no intention of recovering. And those people are broadly the 95%. That is the truth. So again, it's not as clear. Them figures can be very misleading. Now, those figures are very misleading for the third reason. AA does have potentially can be extremely cost effective. Over my years, I've seen people come in and they were wrecks. I mean, complete wrecks. And it's just a complete success story. Some of them may have fell into that 5%, but it was just a complete success story. And when you factor in the cost of AA, I mean, it's hard to dispute, because, I mean, there are no charges. There's no money involved, apart from renting out the actual rooms to attend the meetings. Before anyone looking at that, there are rakes of bad meetings, there's rakes of scams, but if the traditions are followed, apart from footing the rental costs of the meeting, there should be nothing more than that. So I mean, money isn't an issue. If you don't have a pot to piss in and you want to recover from alcoholism, then I would definitely say AA is for you, because the group will, as long as you attend, the group will fund, and whereas if you want to go to many of the other alternatives for alcohol addiction or recovery or whatever the hell, you can be talking stiff pharmaceutical bills, whatever, if you're sectioned, so on and so forth. I mean, the medical costs can really amount up, whereas AA potentially can be very cost effective. So again, this is why the success rate is such a very, very controversial figure. But I will, I can't let this opportunity go without bringing the obvious attention to the fact that, we hear the left talking about the 1% all the time. Well, we all know, and I think the left know themselves, because the vast majority of them are in it, but they know themselves, it's more like the maybe 5% or 5 to 10%. It's not the 1%, which correlates nicely with the actual success rate of AA. In other words, I'm going to plug capitalism here, because as far as I can see, the 5% that recover in AA are the people that are willing to do the work, stay focused, remain clear about what their objectives are. And that correlates exactly with what happens in the economy today. You have the 5% basically making the money, generating the capital, and 95% looking for a free ride. So anyway, couldn't let that opportunity go. Anyway, the God thing. this is probably the single biggest stumbling block people have with AA. It is true, yes, I wouldn't doubt it for a moment. There is a quasi Judeo Christian element within AA. I wouldn't doubt that for a moment. But there's also, I'd have to say, a bit of New Age in there as well, and Orientalism. Maybe that was hijacked later on or whatever, but I often got that taste in my mouth. Now, I've been to many groups that there are actually a bunch of Bible thumpers in the groups, and it's like, oh, come on, everybody knows it's a Christian uh, um, um, thing, and all the rest. There are those people. However, I have seen militant atheists, make great strides in the program, and they're quite outspoken. There is no God. They share it all the time. I don't believe it, and all the rest. But it is suggested, should I say, that you pick up some form of something bigger than yourself. Now, I can only speak for myself regarding this issue. And I find myself crossing this bridge as of late again. I don't, I really struggle with the whole deity thing, and I'm not a great believer in particularly organized religion, but even outside that, I've met plenty of Christians who hate the Roman Catholic Church, the Church of England, the Anglicans, and everything, and they all claim that they're Christians and they believe in a man in the sky. So, but even I struggle with that concept, But however, I do accept. I grew up in, under Christian faith or whatever, and I do accept that some of it, it's reasonable to assume that some of it has formed my opinions and so on and so forth. I mean, you just really have to look at English law, for example, and the highest tier of English law is God's law, um, so I'm just saying that up until relatively recently, I was quite happy and outspoken about my, how could I say, almost, yeah, maybe an agnostic, I could call myself that, my agnostic views, but I feel literally politically pressured as of late to, break bread with Christians, because I have more in common with them than I have with my adversaries. It's a classic case of the what is it? The enemy of my enemy is my friends kind of thing, So hands up. I'm just, as we'll say, a big C conservative or right winger in 2017. I really don't have the luxury of going around saying, my way or the highway. I don't have that luxury. If society could get their way, they'd have me dripping off a hook, So I gotta, be very clever about the enemies that I make, So from that perspective, the same thing is true for AA. I mean, if you really think you've got a problem with alcoholism and your life, remember, a lot of this is a killer thing, can be potentially has the ability to kill you. How irrational is it just to say, oh damn it, I'll bend my knee, is that not logical? I actually think that's logical. It does. That's it. So whatever that this God is, I mean, I don't know if success to you is that you recover and you buy a Ferrari in 2 years' time, and that Ferrari is your God, that's proof that God exists, then that's your gods, you know, and it's exclusive to you, you know, even if that means atheism, you know, but people can see, I don't know, a deity in social forms or engineering or however else they interpret it. So, but no doubt about it, the God thing is the single biggest issue, the biggest either turn off or turn away that AA has. But that's the way it is. Take it or leave it. Your choice. So criticism, and as I've explained earlier, it sure's got enough of it. Not only with the Oxford group, as we mentioned, we also have the success rate is another thing that gets attacked for. The God thing, always a big Achilles heel of AA. But as up until relatively recently, and I don't want to blow my own trumpet in regards to this, but I used to do service at this particular meeting, and this issue came up of 13 stepping. Now that's effectively, in short, it's sexual grooming, effectively, and so that's been the latest thing that AA has to, you know, had to deal with. Now, oh, may sound like I'm trying to defend AA, but well, I'm not really. You know, I actually had to leave that particular group because this 13-stepping phenomenon was so prevalent. I just couldn't sit with it anymore. I mean, it was just basically a group of men that were just waiting. They wait at the meeting. They used to attend a couple of meetings, should I say, and they would just see if any new girl showed up. And you know, they're very innocent. I'll put it that way. These women are, and next one, these guys are. You know, it's like. These guys are the bee's knees suddenly, and next minute, oh, and I'll bring you through the steps and all this. Now, there are minuscule advices given to women in AA. There are women-only AA meetings, and if any girl is looking at this, I would advise them to seek the meetings out. That would be a wise move. I honestly think that. You know, so there's a nail in the coffin for equality right there. I can't approach this without being controversial, I'm afraid. No, but let's talk into it. I'm not going to apologise. This has literally been my experience and my observations, and I'm not going to shy away from it. All right, in regards to 13 stepping, is there sexual grooming going on in AA? Absolutely. In fact, I'll go as far to say that it's probably, considering it has 2.5 million members, I don't know what the membership of the largest dating agency is, but AA must be up there. Let me put it that way. However, just in the context of 13 stepping, in the light of what I've seen from feminazis recently, it's not as clear cut as to say that it is the male being predatory to the female. And I'll give you a direct example of what I'm talking about. I've seen up teen times, upper class women coming into the meetings, you know, and we know this statistically, probably have abandonment issues with their father or something, you know, they're looking for some kind of father figure. So, I mean, I've seen men accused of 13 stepping in AA, but I got to say, the women, let me put it that, they weren't purer than driven snow, let me put it that way. So a lot of signals were sent out, and maybe it was signals for attention rather than for sex, maybe. But anyway, so it's not as black and white as that. Now, there is, like I'm just after mentioning also, there is this phenomenon now, and I gotta say, might be unique to AA in the sense that I, particularly when I was in London now, a phenomenon where like East London is genuinely we'll say the poor, the down class area in London. West London and North London, the income goes up. And I used to see a lot of women from the rich parts of London used to go to meetings in the East London. And they used to be quite open about it because, they'd listen to working class men, and these people were fictitious characters for these women up until that point. Like they at no other times in their life do they ever come in contact with working class men, and it excites them. It really does. They just can't get over. Like, you might say what you like about the working class. They might be crude. We might have dirty fingernails. We might spit on the ground. We mightn't be refined. We're rough diamonds. But what you see is what you get. We're a known quantity. And that, for many upper class women, they find that very, very attractive because they're just so used to being surrounded by what we now know are cucks today that have just absolutely no backbone, stand for nothing, will bend to every woman's will. Of course, why would these women want? Fair play to women, they're not worth it. They're right, the women are right. So AA is a great catalyst to allow these upper class women to actually, well, if you can as a viewer, name another social system where two classes meet like that on a regular basis. Like they're few and far between. So I might go as far as to say it's a phenomenon unique to AA. For my own part, the amount of times I've been hit on by gay men in AA, I used to get sick of it. Like, it used to make me proper angry most of the time. But no doubt about it. Does sexual grooming, or should I say, is it used? Okay, at the far end, is it used as a sexual grooming club on the extreme end? Yes, absolutely. I saw first-hand accounts with it. I actually fell out with a group because this was going on in a group, and they wouldn't do anything about it. On the other end of the scale, the women used to be very provocative. The kind of signals that they used to send to these men, it took two to tango, let me put it that way. Now, in regards to that, it's strange the way the world works out, but again, I'm only giving you my experiences, and I'm trying to apply this to something that's relevant today in a modern context. We often hear of calls for reform within, we say, the Islamic community is always usually gets dumped with this. To some degree, I have sympathies to why that's extremely hard for them to do, and I'll give you the example of AA. When I approached my group about these group of men that were grooming women in the group, they looked down the Book of Traditions, and the Book of Traditions clearly says you cannot judge people. You don't know right from wrong. Remember, you've handed over your agency to a higher power. You do what you're told, you keep your mouth shut. That's what I was told. Well, no, that I've read it for myself. That's the literature, AA doesn't take any, no political position. It has no position on the environment, gay marriage, abortion. It doesn't get involved in politics, it doesn't even get involved in the law. And that was a very big issue when judges kept putting down the hammer and demanding, that trying to reform criminals, sending them into AA groups, and then they go to the AA groups and ask secretaries like me to sign out forms for them to say that they've been in. But that's the state infringing in what is ultimately a charity, a self-supporting charity, and it was a very big. So I shouldn't say we. AA romantically has no position on anything like that. So when this sexual grooming thing came up, oh my God, maybe Bill is trying to say something to me. When this sexual grooming issue came up, I mean, like everybody wanted to do the right thing, and at what point is your ego talking or are the traditions talking? So everybody looked down the traditions and it clearly says we have no position on this. It's not for us to judge anyone else, and so everyone was like, oh, free rides, that's how I perceived it. It's okay, so that's now that we just allow it. So, and I was like, oh my God, after me coming from Catholic Ireland with all the sexual abuse in the church, this is exactly the argument the Catholic Church made to not deal with the sexual issues that were going on in the Catholic Church. AA made exactly the same argument, and these otherwise completely logical and nice people, decent people, would not move against these people, would not do, because it offended the traditions in the big book, and which is effectively the Bible, in AA, and so for you. Effectively, AA would have to reform. It would have to reform in traditions, and probably a couple of the steps if it were to tackle that issue. So I can see it might sound very easy for us as secularists, and many of us. I mean, how many of us really in the West are Christians? Let's face it. It's very easy for us to say to the Islamic community, "Oh, well, you got to reform. Look at us." But, it's easy for us to say, but it's very hard for them because remember, they've grown up all their lives since knee-high to a grasshopper, they've been told that this book is literally a blueprint for the universe. And suddenly, you're forced to actually contend with that book. Like, I'm not saying it can't be done, but I'm just not innocent of the way that I'm asking the Islamic community to bear by reforming Islam. Let me put it that way. And that's just been my experience in AA. So, but I'm just going to make it relevant to a topic in the outside world. So yeah, I'm only being honest with you now, about it. So anyway, whatever you think yourself, I can only tell you my experience of what happened. Now, I would like to conclude because, it's great to make these kind of presentations and arguments and everything and all the rest, but it's proper. As a Westerner, it's proper that I take a position on this. So okay. Now, I spelled out many negative things about AA, and I've also mentioned some positive things. For example, literally 5% of these people do recover. So I mean, some thanks have to be given there. The cost benefits of AA. I also like to I just make sure we understand. I've never heard of anybody being raped in AA. Let me put it that way. I've heard of sexual grooming, but I ain't never heard of rape actually going on in AA. That's been my experience. Also, I've never seen violence in AA. Now, it gets accused many times of being a religious cult. That may be true, horses for courses. However, um, if let's assume it is a religious cult, well, it's certainly not a very violent one, that's for sure. Because I mean, it's less violent even than Buddhism. I mean, how many AA members have you seen going out in the street and setting themselves on fire? I mean, you know, it just doesn't happen. So at the very least, it's a religion where all the pain is inflicted onto to each individual by them individuals. So I guess some maybe there's a lesson to be learned there, or however you want to look at it. Now, I would never tell anybody not to go to AA, and the reason I say that is, even I attended my first meeting nearly 20 years ago, and I grew up in the sticks. There was no support for me. You know, I had a deep psychological issue. There was no support for me, and even if there was, I didn't have a pot to piss in. So, I mean, it wasn't, that option wouldn't have been available to me in either. So I'm simply saying, I mean, if you're desperate enough, even with all the criticisms that I'm after calling out right there, you know, to you, if you're desperate, I would say give it a go. Give it a go. But it mightn't be for you. Maybe it won't work. I don't know. Try it. Be aware of what actually goes on in AA meetings. Like, there's a few slippery characters, no doubt about it. But anybody with two brain cells to rub together will see these people coming from 100 miles away. So, you know, just be aware of the pros and cons and the potential situations that can arise in AA. Give it a go. Mightn't be for you. Remember, this stuff was set up and hasn't been reformed in 80 years. And there are other options open today. I believe there is many pharmaceutical companies that claim to have a cure for the very same thing, and there's many psychologists that are dead against AA as you know, advising anyone to go to AA, and I believe a greater number of GPs are more reluctant to send people today. You know, the default setting of just send them to AA is over. But from my own experience, I gotta tell you, I was in a dark, lonely place 18 years ago, and it literally saved my life. That's been my experience. For that, I give thanks to it. But, you know, as the years go on, I can see the flaws in it, should I say. And to be quite honest, I've had this debate with people. Well, then, is there not some kind of onus on me to, you know, oh, we have to reform the system? I don't know. You know, because if you don't, it's a great first step. It's a great first step program. That's all. You know, and if you have an alcohol problem or you think you do, try AA. Try it out for a couple of weeks. If it's not your cup of tea, then try something else. But it's a great place to start. So why reform it? It's providing a valuable service. It's that first stop. It's that first port of call. It's not a Rolls Royce. It's a Ford, but it's the first step. You know. So I'm not going to criticize it with that. But yes, apart from all the other criticisms I've given about it, but I'll finish on this. But I got to say, ironically, I was very much of a lefty before I started attending AA meetings. It was actually AA that swung my economic and political philosophy towards the right, because I could clearly see in front of me over a number of years people that used to come in and they would just never take responsibility for their own actions. It was always somebody else. It's society. It's because my father. It's my wife, it's my kids, it's because I'm black, it's because I'm white, I'm repressed, I'm this, I'm that. There was always something, as they used to say, pour me, pour me, pour me a fucking drink. And then people always relapse. They were the 95%. What was very hard, and I honestly think I'm in that 5%. What was very hard to do was just, and it is not easy. You have to, is it brainwashing? Yes, that's exactly what it is. But you have no choice. It's death or brainwashing. What is the logical conclusion to that? For me, AA was death. No, I'll take AA. Brainwash me. So to bend your knee and accept that maybe sometimes in life you don't know what's the best for you. Maybe you aren't actually on your own side. That you can't trust the human condition, the human psyche. Now you tell me as a viewer, which political sphere is pushing that you can trust your emotions, your feelings, and which political sphere is telling you you can't.